Chapter 2, Part 2. Magic wasn't often a word, or the true meaning of magic wasn't expressed in the moon dimension of the Rabations. It was neither a power or privilege. It just was and is. Rabations could manipulate elements and fabricate anything that followed a thought. Yet, there was never any conflict or hierarchy with power or levels thereof. Rabations, however, were not perfect. Sometimes a lack of conflict, or even the lack of evil, produced a monkey see no evil, monkey do no evil attitude, resulting in instantaneous trust without development of such. This was a huge downfall with the Rabations, and without the interference of previous selected human kings, some kingdoms suffered massively at the hands of humans that disguised their evil under the coat of patience and personality disorders. Sometimes even psychopath tendencies that Rabations could never comprehend. This exposure to evil, however, did provide royalty with the knowledge of better human selection, or allowance into the tradition. Rabations, even royalty it appeared, was still not perfect. Since Earth time and Rabation time differed massively, the event on a day in Earth time was a year in the future for Rabations. So Fred's experience today was actually Fred a year in the future in Rabation time. Preparations for the event, held in Japan, took only half a day before the event. Preparations in the moon dimension for this event took just under 1 year. Food that humans had never seen before had been grown. Lufcus horn drills, a main ingredient in most Rabations' food, took over 6 months to fully develop. It was a large crop vegetable that looked like large tusks, but had spirals travelling down it, hence the name horndrill. And Lufcus was the Rabation that discovered it. Most food was found by chance and revolutionized the food culture, since some human kings over the generations had been cooks or owned restaurants. Lufcus horndrills were one of many ingredients that required time for preparation. Another thing that was prepared were all the tables, chairs, cutlery, and anything imaginable used for this event. It was created and crafted from scratch. It was no wonder it took a year for preparation. Trees that were used for their fine wood took over 9 months to fully develop, and not any old tree would work, as the lamination process would destroy an older tree's wood. Not to mention the de-animation process of the wood was a lot harder, as old trees were set into the groove, so to speak. New trees developed their animation process over the first year of their full growth, so spotting a new tree in the wild was an easy but comical sport, as its body was out of sync with the other trees. It looked clumsy, and despite no face, it seemed sad. Literally, everyone in the kingdom, from child to king, had their role to play in this traditional event. Not only did it bring everyone together, it gave every Rabation a purpose and something positive to look forward to. There was one sad aspect to this tradition. It meant that the current king of the kingdom was dying or was too old to reign. Although this fact held sadness, Rabations would, on the last day of the year before the event, line up from the palace doors and personally thank the king for his service. This was a draining task for the current king at his age, but anyone from this world or another could see his expression was one filled with a deep and meaningful happiness. One question that may be on your mind is that of the king and queen's children. Since the dawn of the Rabations, human men were introduced to create children, but only royalty held a gene that only created female Rabations. Every generation of royalty had princesses numbering more than one. This meant that the elder one being married to the future human king, the younger princess would almost be a backup in case the elder one perished. A sad and harsh reality, but it was well understood that royalty saw this as a common knowledge rather than a blemish of the ego or self. The current king-queen of the Rabations had 3 daughters, all separated by human years of 2. Age for Rabation women wasn't like age for human women. Their reproduction ability did not falter. They did not grey, neither did they lose their teeth or vision. Rabation women could live to 300 years old. Royalty, having been reproducing with humans, despite the fragility of human life, had now the ability to live past 400 years old. The princess to be wed was Eliolesa, pronounced Eliolesa. It meant keen flower, an iconic yet fitting name for a newlywed. Eliolesa was the eldest of the 3 princesses, and held a decorum of softness about her. Standing at 5 foot 8 inches, she was roughly average height for a Rabation woman. She had gentle, light brown hair that looked light as a feather, reaching down to her lower back. It had the effect of keeping her posture upright. She held a small round face, with small yet puffy eyebrows that completed her hair in a darker tone of brown. Her eyes were the lightest brown possible, but held a glossy sparkle that encouraged the viewing of them to be calming. Her nose was small and almost doll-like. Her lips were a muted shade of pink, with the upper lip slightly covering the lower, as it held a larger shape. Her figure was like an hourglass, however her upper body was slightly smaller than the lower half of her. With her body being slightly more legs than torso, she seemed taller than she actually was. Eliolesa opened her eyes to feel the residue of heat on her eyelids reside under her brow. Rubbing the arches of her eyes with an expression of neutrality, she looked at the wooden ceiling of her room. Seeing the ingrained lines of the wood, she counted some of them, and upon reaching a number, she gave up and threw back some of her covers for her to rise onto her elbows. Looking around the room, everything was where it was meant to be. Her window to her left remained closed by curtains. Her dress box, or wardrobe as we know it, was wide open as she expected it to be with 2 younger sisters. Her mirror and face-changer table was a silent mess, and her shoe rack was missing an equal amount of uneven shoes. "Those rascals," Eliolesa said, thumping her small fists onto the pulled-back covers. She smiled, got up, and went to the window to draw back the curtains. Upon opening them, she looked at the deep merging of colours in the atmosphere, and with vacant thought, her soft-spoken eyes searched into the haze of unattainable potential. "I wonder what you're doing right now. I hope you will like me," she thought to herself. Confidence in her duty was one thing, but confidence in love was another for Eliolesa. Inexperienced and still in her developing years, she was only 57 in Rabation years. Reading the creations of humans from throughout the ages about love, Eliolesa had come to the conclusion that she held a great responsibility to be desirable, to be a caregiver, and most importantly, to give a male an irreplaceable gift. a child. Eliolesa had confused responsibility of her royal blood with marriage and love, and become this idea set in stone. A plan, if you will, that could not deviate nor change with situation or emotion. The current king, her father, would have talks with her about this event. He tried to change her idea of what love and devotion meant. At meals of gatherings, he would tell her to watch her mother. She was the epitome of everything good in the world, and still held who she was in check. She wasn't a word-for-word idea of how she should have been, she simply was. Seeing her mother made her smile anyway, but the positive aura and energy surrounding her mother made her glow unlike any light shining from the atmosphere drifting above them. It was plain and simple that her mother, Queen Numeria, was how a queen should be. Comparisons always brought on a weird sensation in the stomach and skull of Eliolesa. Rabations never held negativity too well. It would linger for just a moment before their minds would almost throw it out. Eliolesa would sometimes try and hold the feeling, try to understand it, to grasp it. However, it was almost impossible. It just left her almost as quick as it hit her. The side effect to this was that it got her frustrated for a moment, before that also left her. She would laugh and curse at the same time in a pantomime of mere seconds. Eliolesa would ask her mother about such feelings, and was met with a warm cuddle. "You must let go of those feelings. Do not welcome them back, Ellie," Queen Numeria said softly. "But what do they mean?" asked Eliolesa, hugging her mother once more. "They're just reactions to what happens to us. It's something more human than what our kind experience," replied Numeria. "But what? But we look the same as Dad. Why aren't we the same?" asked Eliolesa innocently. "The same in image, but different in mind, child. Now enough of this. We need to get your dress fitted." Numeria replied softly, breaking off her arms from Eliosa's. She turned, and her eyes cast downwards to suggest one deep in thought. Then, within blinking time, she regained herself and over-positive aura of positivity. The conversations were always the same, answered, but at the same time unanswered. With a fleeting moment of unease, Eliolesa regained composure and then headed to the fitting room. It was located, unfortunately, all the way on the other side of the palace. On her way down a long corridor on the first floor, her eyes drifted to the cantering darkness of the oblong shape of the hallway. The red carpet, stretching like a tongue, extended into the darkness at the end. The light lamps protruding from the glimmering elderwood walls flickered with the vibrations of the air. The echoes of her footsteps travelled like a stone down the depths of a well. The air friction between her arms and nightclothes boomed in retaliation of her increased pacing. Her blinking, unsynced with the air, left the vibrations hitting her closed eyelids. Everything suddenly went dark. "Sister, sister!" shouted two similar voices. "She looks like Moriarty's cougar-born, that poor beast," said one voice. "Musana, don't be silly. Sister doesn't fight. Look how beautiful she is," the other retorted. "Well, Fregani, I know she doesn't fight, but look, she isn't moving," answered back Musana. "Should we call Mother? She looks like she has the sickness, Fragani asked. That won't be needed, answered Eliolesa, slowly getting herself back up on her elbows. What happened, Ellie? Did you fall? Asked Fragani. Clearly she fell over, Nay, retorted Musana. Nay being Fragani's nickname. Fragani threw her short arms into the air, and with a silent expression expressed that she felt silly even asking the question. I'll be fine, little ones. I just need a little rest, and I'll be back to normal, stated Eliolesa. Helping her with outreach gestures, the two sisters watched her carefully stand tall and regain herself. Eliolesa wasn't sure what was happening to her or why. Her only excuse was the event. But even so, such an event was known to her since being a small child. She knew her destiny and where it was leading. Unable to explain herself, she went to her mother before going to her dress fitting. She separated herself from her sisters after a firm no to all their pleas of sticking with her. She told them not to mention anything of this to father, as she was going to mother to get answers. The sisters complied and left holding hands after some small hesitation. Eliosa's mother was in the midst of preparations for the event. As the maestro of every placement and construction, her posture varied along with the position of her head, neck, the pinky, and sometimes the index finger, taking the lead with directing Rabation craftsmen, women, with their engineering companions, head cooks, and soon following behind, decorators. It was chaos, but in such an order, a young Rabation woman could slip through the stream of Rabations in motion to reach the centre of the palace dining hall. Eliolesa, once reaching the centre, stood on a stool made entirely of old wood. Looking around, streams of fine fabric lined the shimmering shine of the elder wooden hall. Insignias of the Rabation royalty, clearly stitched into the direct centre of each robe-like hanging fabric, boldly stung anyone's eyes who dared look at it. With contrasting colours of metallic red, neon yellow, and jet blacks, it followed a simple Q formula, which offered complementary lighting and darkening to areas of the hall. Formations of wood sculptures of the first rabbits of the moon hopping in midair were carved so hollow the vibrations of the air could hold them hopping without support. But the craftsmen did not stop there. As they synced them up with the movement and placed them higher in the hall, so as Eliolesa looked up above the open roof of the palace hall, she was acquainted with hopping rabbits following a large circle rotation. Eliosa's eyes widened, as she had never witnessed anything so beautiful to complement the beauty of the atmosphere above. However, it did not end there. Eliosa's mother, despite not being a craftswoman or engineer, had been a creative thinker. Eliosa's eyes were further widened by the projections of light, not overthrown by the presence of the atmosphere above them. Shapes resembling Rabations were, it seemed to be, building something. A structure of large presence. The royal palace. The homes of normal Rabations. Then a large shadow looms for a moment, vanishing all light creations, and from what seems to be the sky, a being or person falls, landing on the palace. It resets the entire lighting animation. When the human is selected, he falls from the sky, Mother? Eliolesa asked, curiously, with raised eyebrows. Yes, dear. Your father's fall was quite funny. He doesn't like heights, replied Queen Numeria with a girlish giggle. Her mother's creations and direction never seemed to end, as to every inch of the hall her eyes felt bright to creation and the animated nature her land was gifted with. Mother, I have these Numeria finished her sentence. Feelings? I expected so. Did you black out? Yes, replied Eliolesa. Are you hurt? Show me. Numeria began inspecting Eliosa's arms gently, raising them and lowering them, along with a quick duck to check her knees. Mother, I'm fine, but what was that? Asked Eliolesa. It was something humans call anxiety. It's not something we should experience more than once or twice in our lives. You can thank our human ancestors for that. Numeria took Eliosa's face gently into her hands and brought her face closer to hers. This event, though not something you selected, will open up doors in yours and everyone else's life. The union between you and the man good enough for you will be the future of our land. This isn't pressure I'm inflicting on you. It's truth. Anything you're feeling now will ease, and everything will become clear soon enough. Thank you, Mother. Eliolesa gently grasped her mother's hands and moved them gently from her face. Eliolesa, although expressing an emotional ease on her face, still held a pecking at the back of her mind.